This is Colin Dijs, and in this video we'll see a recording of my private group coaching training where I show my students how to properly test native ads to make money promoting affiliate marketing offers. So if you haven't subscribed to this new channel yet, please do so down below, and you can see all my new videos about native ads. So if you're interested in native ads, subscribe now, like this video, and this is 1.5 hours worth of dedicated training for my private students. So for free, have a look. If you like it, please give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and then we'll provide you with more content on this channel very soon. Hello. Yep, there we are. All right, all up and running. There we go. All right, we have many people today, and we will have many more people. And because we have many people and everything is interactive, there are some rules. Number one, which is the rule, all cameras are turned on, or you cannot participate on this live training. Robert, Alenio, there we go. Boop, boop, boop. There they are. Everybody's here. Perfect. So what we'll do is we'll take half an hour to an hour, dive in on the native ads game, structurally approached, where we basically draft out a mind map on the most often asked questions, which is, of course, the testing structure right now. Once there are questions about this testing structure, every other 5 to 10 minutes, I ask, is this everything clear? If it's clear, we move on. If it's not clear, you can write your question in the chat. Stanley will then unmute you. You can ask your questions. You can do a screen share if necessary, and then we'll move on from there. So we'll have the different options available. There will be a lot of detail if you guys can handle it in terms of how the ads are set up, what is important, what are the required assets. And what we see most often is that obviously elements like ICTR, how they relate to each other, what the progress is, how relative they are, is very confusing for most people, which is basically the foundation. As soon as that foundation is set, you can move on. So what we'll do, I will start with a screen share where we basically start in the middle. Right, perfect. Can everybody see this? Stanley, can you just let me know if this shows okay?
Yeah, definitely. We can see your screen.
Yeah, all right, perfect. All right, then we start with the basic, right? I like to do things on this little extension for Drive, which is called Mind Map, because it's basically easy to understand for everybody. As soon as we understand this throughout the weeks, we will progress with real data analysis. And of course, at the end of this training, if you have a campaign and you have specific questions, we can pull you up, you can do a screen share, and we can walk through your campaign. Obviously, that's the benefit of you explaining what you're going through, getting some one-on-one feedback there. All right, native ads. Quite simple. We go back to the basic theory, which is the system is basically guided up to 3 different sections, right? The sections we all know, we're all familiar with. Let me just make them. Is this big enough for everybody to read? I assume so. Okay, we just want to have it go there. And then we create additional flows. So we have the testing, the optimizing, and the scaling. The scaling obviously being the most lucrative one, because as soon as we are at the scaling stage, we know that we have traction. The optimization is almost all fixated on pre-based rules. So because the optimization is just a matter of time and ad spend, there is obviously a lot of things to consider, but there are no extreme roadblocks on the way. The roadblocks for native and all the programmatic structures are always in the testing phase. Yes, there are 2 different things on the testing phase we need to consider. We have data-driven and we have emotional-driven. So this will be one of the topics that is very common for most of you. The data speaks obviously in data, and then you have your emotional decision-making, which is the biggest struggle for most junior to senior media buyers, right? When you make the transition for spending $100 a day to $1,000 a day to $10,000 a day, the progress of emotional decision-making has to be eliminated. If that is still there, it means there's no confidence in what you're doing, and you allow yourself to make mistakes this way. which cost a lot of money and are definitely not needed or suited at this stage of the game. So the data driven, obviously, we should make a 90% to 10% structure here. If you are realistic, you would probably say you have no control over some emotions, right? The gut feeling, how we call it, you will have to follow a little bit. So can I see some hands of anybody who knows from themselves there is emotional decision-making involved in the process, all right? I see them go up, there we go. So we all know that there's obviously always some emotional decision-making involved. And that's okay, because that is what makes us humans, and that is what makes us very creative, right? So the aspect of creativity, the angles that you've never seen before is all tied up in this specific part. Then obviously the money is all tied up in this part, right? So the combination of the two things is what makes it great. Then that's not all. To make everything structured, we have something called business structure, which is basically the management of your employees if you're at that stage, your tools, the mechanics, and the overall tax, legal, anything that any business would consist of. So native ads is included there, and you have obviously what we call technical preparation. It's setting everything up, managing the server, managing where the lenders are hosted and everything like that. Obviously, this part is made relatively easy as everything is in one platform and there are a lot of integrations available. Business structure is something that we will focus on a lot in the coming months, which has to do with obviously things that we do not worry about right now, but we should worry about, like taxes, write-offs, all these different things, because they can save us a lot of money, which means we can spend more money on ads. So at the end of the day, you have three structures. We all know them. We all see them many times, but the question is, what is the right thing to do and how do we do it? Any questions so far on this part? Because this is basically basic introduction. From here, we will take a little bit of a deep dive. Give you 30 seconds. If you have a question, drop it in the chat. We pick it up right now, or we move on. Everybody takes a sip of water. Got to stay hydrated. But I assume at this point, there are no questions. If questions do come through, feel free to write them and Stanley will pick them up. Let me know. All right, testing, all right. Consists of multiple components. Let's start at the foundation, which is obviously the traffic source, right? We have many different options regarding the testing, and there are a lot of different sources available. You need to know the difference between this word and this word, SSP, DSP, right? This is the foundational theory that you will find in the new content portal. If you haven't gone through it already, these definitions need to make sense because we can go direct, which is our most often choice. Then there is buying through a DSP, which has a lot of connections with direct sources, and then the SSP is the supply side. So demand side platform, supply side platform. An option here, obviously volume DSP, right, which has the name in it, but also a platform which is called self-advertiser. Hybrid models like AdCache are all related on the SSP side. When you go direct, you will buy directly from RevContent, MGID, Nativo, Mobfox, basically the straight sources. Even these sources might have hybrid elements in them as well. So it all starts at the traffic source. And once we are at the traffic source and we're ready to get started to launch our campaign, what do we preferably want? One or two things. Whitelist, blacklist. The whitelist is introduced to most of you guys because it makes the most sense to understand what the opportunities are, right? So we go direct and we have two choices, whitelist and then blacklist. All right, what will we choose? Whitelist with pre-selected placements that are proven to convert, keep this definition in mind, or a blacklist, a list of placements that for your offer and or geo would probably not work, and usually these are the high bot traffic placements. If you have little experience, you would prefer a whitelist, a list of placements that are proven to convert by other advertisers.
if you have a lot, the other side, a lot of experience, you would prefer a blacklist because you just don't want the bot traffic placements or lower quality placements, but you know that you want to tap into the new placements, for example, that have limited testing budgets allocated to them, because you can do things that other affiliates cannot do. That's why we are all here, right? Whether you are at the stage of $1,000 a day or $100 a day or 100,000 a day, right? At the end, we train something, and that's why we're all here on this call right now, to do what other affiliates cannot do. Whether you're starting to learn or you're very advanced, we have the whole selection on this call right now. So keep in mind, right? I'll just classify you as beginners on the whitelist, and once you become more advanced, take the blacklist. Yes, you can do either or, but this is a simple structure. I assume, as in the core format presented, everybody right now has their traffic source for the whitelist. So now you know, blacklists are also a solution. Questions about this? We're all clear? Yes, can I see some thumbs up for everybody who understands this up until this point? Yeah, I think it's quite easy still. Okay, so you guys are ready, right? You guys are ready for the good stuff, the big boy stuff. We want to hear about the variables, right? The parameters, the tracking parameters, all the
Colin?
more in their pieces. Yes, sir.
Before we move on, we have a question from Damien. So I'm going to unmute Damien, or ask Damien to unmute himself. There we go.
Yeah, just obviously with you saying there with the whitelist blacklist,
Yes.
it seemed to be very, you either use the whitelist or you use the blacklist. Can you not use them in combination?
All right, usually what happens is most sources only allow one Excel upload. So at the same time, there would be conflict there. However, if you use a whitelist, you're basically automatically applying a blacklist, because you're selecting pre-selection, you're automatically excluding, right?
Yeah.
And if you have a blacklist, so it's whitelist most premium, blacklist only excluding and not including. So, and there's run, of course, the run on network. Yeah. So you have the bad placement exclusion on the run, which we call a blacklist, and then a pre-selection, which includes exclusion because of it, whitelist. Make sense?
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
All right, perfect. That's a good question. Makes sense. Anything else for you, Damien?
No, that's cool.
All right. Okay, let's continue if there are no more questions. All right, now we start at the foundational theory of the actual testing, right? Because we start at the creatives. There are so many variables in the testing that we cannot do it all this week. So we might do it next week or the week after that, but it will all be discussed. So we start with the creatives, right? Everybody who runs on the coaching plan knows that the testing structure that we implement for the best results is very labor intensive and shows the most results. If you're not on a coaching plan, great, because I'm going to show you the actual system right now. So pay attention, right? All right, so this is creatives. Most sources allow anywhere from 10 to 250 creatives, right? So I'll put that in between brackets, 10 to 250 creatives. The reason that this is the case is they either have an algorithm that picks out non-compliant ads, or everything is approved by hand, which is obviously a lot of work. So if you have a traffic source which has hundreds of thousands of advertisers on it, you will see that the daily cap on the new images is low. The reason being is they cannot handle the compliance. Sometimes it might take up to 48, 72 hours. And you know that there's a lot of advertisers on the source. If the compliance is approved quickly, you know they either have a full staff on deck, or they just don't have that many competition there. We assume that we always want to max out on the creative count. Yes, max out, which means the maximum amount of creative possible. Do not get confused at this point, because we're already taking a deep dive. There are two separate elements, right? We have the ads, the lander, the offer. At this moment in time, we're going to solely offer on the first section, solely focus on the first section, which is offer. We do not take into consideration the lander or the offer. So the coherent flow is cut off at this point, right? We're only looking at the offer. One thing we will not take into consideration yet, but will soon come, is of course the CPA rule, right? Well, so we put the CPA rule aside and we solely focus on the creatives. The reason why we want to max out the creatives, because parallel to this test on the creatives, money is spent on basically the second step, which is the CPA rule. So the CPA rule is ongoing in the background while we focus on the creatives. So we max out the creatives, which will get you, let's say, let's do an example. Let's say we get 20 creatives. Yes. Right. Now there are obviously questions, because what do we do? Right? Do we do images? Do we do headlines? Do we do whatever we can do? Descriptions, depending on what the source offers. Do we do GIFs? Are they enabled? There are so many options. We want to keep things simple and based, test according to a base system, right? So there are 3 variables we can pick from: headline, image, and usually either those 2, or there would be a description, which is usually not that applicable. All right, so before we do all these things, we need one thing, right? We know the offer, we know what kind of landing we want to run, but this is solely on the inspirational prep, the creativity of these ads. Who can tell me what we need? Hand up, Stanley will unmute you and you can shout it. And I hope you will make me very happy. All right, all of a sudden, people are not that excited. Come on, you're confident. You guys have done this many times. What do we need in order to know where we need to go? It's simple. Well, I would say simple because I know the answer, right? So in order to create the creatives, once we know the offer. Stanley, I cannot see everybody. Is there anybody who knows this answer? Because when I say it, you'll be like, of course, simple. All right, there we go.
Let me see.
I saw a hand from Damien, but he's trying to hide it again.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'm going to unmute Damien, or ask him to unmute. You can unmute yourself, by the way.
I'll give it a go. I'm assuming that it's for the ad that you're needing to make sure it's a coherent flow. So it has to be a coherent image that makes sense throughout the flow.
All right, that's correct. But what do we do to make a coherent flow, right? I would need to know a certain topic. And what do we call the topic?
On
the spot, TikTok?
No.
I see Robert. I haven't seen Robert in a long time, so I'm happy to see you here. Can you give the floor to Robert? Damien, good attempt. I will give you 1 point on my little notepad full of secrets. And Robert will take the floor and he will shout the right answer.
Oh, well, obviously we need to pick the right niche. And from the niche, you then have the right offer. You find the right supplier for that particular offer. Could be CPA, could be rev share, could be anything, but you got to choose your offer so you can create your creatives and get your ad copy done.
Okay, and based on what do we write the ad copy?
Well, based on the research you've done on the actual offer, you write the ad copy nice and short, to the point, depending on the offer.
It's all awesome, but it's not the word I'm looking for. So we're looking for a specific word that we call.
We had another hand up from Ray. I'm going to ask Ray to unmute.
Okay, Robert, perfect explanation. 2 times ClickBank Platinum. Here we go. On to Ray. Last one.
You need geo, your location.
Okay, we're very much focused right now on basically the part which is cut off, right? Either the coherent flow, the front, the back, just the creatives. Ray, I know you know this. You write copy.
Yeah, obviously you need to know the price or how much you want to spend. You're spending your target. Your no, I'm not sure then.
Good attempt, right? Good attempt. All right, we need an angle, right? That's the foundation of, everybody's like, of course, we need an angle. That's the foundation of your ad. Robert described it, right? You said it has to flow, the headline is important, and how you frame it, and that's basically an angle. So we need an angle and sub-angles, right? That is something which is the main core of your creativity. We'll write it here. Oh, wait, I wrote headline. It's angle, and then sub-angle. Okay, from the people who just spoke, who wants redemption and can give me an angle which includes a sub-angle? Ray, want to give it another shot? Yeah, he's like, sure, we'll try. That's the mindset. We all need to make mistakes, but it's not a mistake because you were on the right path.
Angle, like you're talking about like the topic, like weight loss, or okay, so you have your like
So let's say it's weight loss. What would be a good angle for weight loss?
Emotional, like how a person would look like, or how do they
yeah, let's do
where
emotional.
they are now and how they're going to look like in the near future, or
all right, then we have the sub-angle already. So emotional, it's very broad, of course, but you narrow it down. How you look before and how you look after.
Yes.
So before and after, right? That's that would be the sub-angle, before and after, which is a very strong mental trigger, of course, for users to engage in. So Ray, you have 100% redeemed yourself. Very nice. So we have the emotional angle and we have the before and after. This is one example. On emotional, you can also do a sub-angle, which is insecurities. Then again, it unfolds, right? On the insecurities, there is wearing a bikini in public for the females. Very strong emotion there. Summer is coming. Don't you want to wear comfortable clothing? Oh, wait, you can't because you're super fat, right? Cry. They need to feel that pain as an advertiser. You need to frame it to trigger the main pain in order to drag that attention. So the ad itself will be the scroll stopper and the headline will get the click. That's how it works, yeah, the curiosity. If the headline is so strong and angles the pain which the user experience very well, you're basically guaranteed the click-through because they're interested, they feel the pain, now it's up to you to knock it out of the park, right? Obviously, the most difficult thing is get a pain point which is common and linear across a big group of people. And that is obviously where the ICTRs differ, 0.8%, 2%, 4%. The better you target the audience based on the key components of the pain point, the higher the ICTR will be. Unless you're shouting clickbait things, which will result in bad results. So we will focus in this scenario on two things. We want it to be broad enough, like Ray said. We did emotional, which is a very broad spectrum. Everybody is emotional. Then we do before and after, right? I have a specific rule applying to the different genders, how to target them and why. I think it's a very funny rule, but who can explain me this rule? Hands up if you remember how to target the genders for a certain product and why. So the question is, of course, would it be suitable for males or females? And what do we show in the ads, male or females? There's a very specific structure there, which I think makes sense. Stanley, do you see anybody?
Yes, we have one hand up from Damien, so let's give the floor to Damien.
Is this when you were saying about females like females and males,
Yes.
males like females, so so if you decide your audience is going to be a male, you will use only female creatives, yes, or female within the creatives. If you decide you're going to target females, you can use females and males within your creative.
Yes, so the rule is 100% right definition from Damien. Females like females and males. Males only like females. They don't like other males. It's a testosterone kind of thing. Well, some males like males, but I assume that's a very low percentage of the audience you're targeting, right? So in the ad creative, we almost always use females. There are exceptions, which is authority figures, doctors, all these things. There's a very practical joke going around where there's like a summary of a situation and everybody assumes that a doctor is a male. as a doctor position, but they can also be females. But in our subconscious, there are certain roles that we classify as male or female. This is very simply done. Do a Google search with which roles or titles are assumed to be male. This is obviously very powerful psychological copy material that I assume most of you don't implement. The same thing, if anybody has gone through the push course, where we have ads that target out specific cultural names, which is something that is like a little trick, which will boost the ICTR quite significantly. What would happen for you guys if you would stack 3 of these things, and you have the role, and you have the slang of the country, and you have the name? Obviously, where the average ICTR is 1%, yours is going to be 3.5%, which will mean you dominate the market because you can spend more, take less ROI, but take the entire bid floor of 100%. So you get all the traffic and everybody else gets nothing. And that's how you win. So it's the stacking of unique variables. Very important. Here we go to the data and emotional side. Remember the 90% and the 10%. These little elements are part of the 10%. If your core testing structure is not set up properly, that 10% doesn't matter. It's not going to make or break your campaign, right? So put the focus where it matters. And these advanced elements can make a non-profitable campaign on longevity more profitable, or a profitable one even more profitable, right? So don't put the focus like, oh, Colin said, I need to look for all these names and blah, blah, blah. It's very helpful once you have traction. It will not give you traction. Yes? All right, let's move on. So we will take this as an example because I think it's a very interesting one you see a lot, obviously, before and after. We'll do weight loss right now. We'll target it in detail. Anybody who's doing binary, crypto, it will come the other week, right? So next time we'll take a different flow. Any questions up until this point about the testing before we actually go into how you need to do it? So the implementation is next, which I would pay proper attention because it will move quite fast. So if you have questions, you can ask them now. Damn, half an hour already. Man, we're killing it. We're going like wee, wee.
I don't think we have any questions at this moment.
All right, then we'll move on. Damn, everybody is excited today. Everybody understands everything. That is my main goal. So if you have questions, do ask them now because we're live. And if you don't ask questions, you need to wait 2 weeks, which would be a shame. All right, let's have a look. We have 3 different elements. As most sources do not support the description, let's just remove it and let's move this so we have a better structure here. So let's see if I
Actually, we do have a question before we move on, if you don't mind.
Okay, well, sure.
Patrick has a question, so I'm gonna ask Patrick to unmute himself.
Yes. Patrick always has good questions. Can't hear you yet.
He is unmuted.
Can you hear him?
Nope. Do you have a mic plugged in, Patrick?
No. I'll just wait a second, or he can type it. Patrick, one thing before we continue. I forgot to mention it before, but I did see it. It was Patrick's birthday this week, or a couple of days ago. So happy birthday to you. I have all you guys' birthday written down in my little notebook of secrets right here. Are you sending it over the chat, your question?
Yes. Okay. Patrick, his question is, do you have a metrics for developing the titles and images?
For developing the titles and images, a metric? Yes, and we will explore it right now. So I assume you mean how to find them and how to structure them and the testing protocol behind it. Yes, all right, let's take a deep dive because this is Patrick's section then, because this is where it all happens. This is the structure. All right, so you have to make a choice. Yes, we have 2 different variables inside this structure right now. One is headline, one is image. You don't want to prioritize one over another. So we'll start out with a hybrid mix. As soon as the hybrid testing is done, which is the first initial test, we will immediately rinse and repeat based on one variable, right? So start with both and then make a choice. One is not better than the other. They both need to be tested. So we have 20 creatives. So what I will do, you're very free in how to do it as long as the combination ends on 20. So, well, 1 on 20 would be a little weird. 2 on 10 makes more sense. 4 on 5, 5 on 4, right? As long as the outcome is 20 there, or however many the source allows. So if you can do 100, obviously you have a lot more freedom. What is important, however, you need to know, so this would be 10 headlines and 10 images, all right? Basic math, 10 times 10. What is important, however, know your capabilities. One thing I want to make very clear right now is that we do not promote fucked up ads, right? No shit ads. So if you're like, oh, I have 60 great ads, but I want to do 100 because it's the cap, you're going to push 40 ads, which are going to spend money. And because it's digital money, the feeling is less. But if I have $1 bills and count them out, you're like, well, I'd rather keep that money to spend it on broken ads, right? So it's very important to only launch ads that you're comfortable, or at least confident with, that will succeed. That's one. But max it out, right? So we have, let's say, 100 creatives, and I know my strong capabilities, images, and lesser so headlines, if I have to give it a ratio. So what I will do, actually, I will do 4 different headlines, and I'll do 25 images. All right, this is the base set, right? What I will do is I will angle all of these images to before and after, right? Because we're going to follow race flow. So 25 images on before and after. Here it becomes interesting because we have a wide variety, right? We can add as many things as you want. One thing you need to consider is, I don't know if I phrased it correctly, but it's race match, race supremacy. In one country, there's always a dominant race. So it makes no sense to run ads in France with Chinese people in them. It makes a lot more sense to have Asian people in your ads when you promote in APAC, right? There is one big difference. There is a general appeal for lighter skin, which is a lot of products, cosmetics out there in Asia as well, where if you would have half-blood, like Asian, Caucasian mix in your image with that product behind it, obviously it skyrockets because that's their goal and that's the problem solution. So important, match it with the audience. Because in this scenario, we're actually having real people. So moving, putting the headline on hold, we'll move into the images first before later coming back. And like usual with my trainings, I will go everywhere off topic and then come back at the end. So do not get confused. If you get confused, ask questions. All right, before and after, what do? We're looking for similar patterns. And when I say similar patterns, the first thing you would think of is usually tattoos, right? If I have a tattoo on my throat when I'm fat, you will see the tattoo on my throat when I'm skinny, and you know it's real because there's a one-on-one resemblance, right? This can be a wedding ring, an obvious mole, all kinds of other elements, right? All right, here comes rule number 2 for your creative. Things that you see on the creative are not actually most of the time visible when it becomes an ad, right? Because you're looking at this and you have nothing else on your screen, and the audience will look at this with all kinds of other copy on the screen. So when you look at my face right now, right, I have a mole inside my lip, very unique, but you cannot see it. But if I take a picture of my face, everybody says, oh, that's so unique, you got a mole in your lip. Yes, but that's the base understanding. There are a lot of elements that usually drag attention and are emphasized, which is great, but you need to be able to see them. One of the emphasis in this picture of me right now is obviously, wait, the other side, this painting, right? This painting is the big mover, not necessarily these earpods, because they're so small, you can barely see them. The user needs a direct recognition of the element you're pointing out. If you have somebody who's fat and now they're not fat, the brain, it makes sense. Yes, I see a lot of Nutra fruit well, we obviously had the shot classes in 2020. These are elements that if you have some kind of hybrid fruit, which nobody knows about, which comes from the jungle, it's super cool. It's only super cool to you, right? If I see some kind of citrus peeling, I assume it's an orange and I don't care, right? Because there's no curiosity element built in. It's either top curiosity or top problem focused. And problem is the easiest because it's problem solution, right? They buy the solution from you, which is the before and after. So similar patterns there too, skin patterns, etc. Right? I assume this is pretty clear. When we go into the before and after, light is very important. How the light is set based on the picture determines the quality. What you'll see is programs like, for example, P90X, which is a very famous fitness program. They have competitions on a monthly basis where people hold a newspaper, they get their picture taken with the date, and the next date they have significant weight loss. Obviously, these images are perfect because they give their audience suggestions, just like Herbalife, all the MLM brands for Nutra. They give the audience suggestions on how to take the picture because they use it for promotional purposes. If on these creatives they make hundreds of millions, then probably these ads are working really well. And we can use these images, or if not these images, but similar images to our advantage, right? Again, no males in Nutra before and after ads. Very simple. The light is very different, which basically creates for us one of the 5 elements of a good ad, which is contrast. Okay. When you see a person with the weight loss, where are the significant patterns or where you can see the weight loss? We're going very deep right now on the creative. Anybody can point out the pieces of the body where the weight loss is most shown. You might not think about this, but when you select the before and after, the visual appearance gets the scroll stop. So who knows which parts of the body have the most obvious drastic appearance when it comes down to weight loss? Differences.
Demetrius seems to know the answer. I'm going to ask Demetrius to unmute himself. After that, we also have a question from Damien.
All right, let's hear it.
The face.
Mr. Singleton, welcome.
How you doing?
Pretty good. I'm awaiting your...
The face.
Face. Right. Face is one, which is an obvious one. Right.
Okay, and the waist. Face and waist.
Face. Okay, we got waist. Whoa. When we say waist, where is it actually the actual waist, which is like where a belt is at, or?
Yeah, where the belt is.
Okay. Oh, waist. Okay, so let me. Okay, so from the face, what are the elements that you usually see on people who have a little bit more weight to them?
Chin, cheeks.
Okay, perfect. I would say chin. I agree. It would be the most important one. If you have a double chin, you know you're fat. Simple as that. When no offense to anybody on this call who thinks they're fat. Waist. Okay, how would I perceive the waist element?
Muffin top. I don't know. You talking about like names?
Muffin top was a good one. Right. So when you talk about muffin top, it's basically only the front view, which is very important, right?
Yeah.
Only the front view that indicates this muffin top. All right. Any other elements?
You asking me or?
Yeah, sure. You can go on. Because I'm missing a big one.
Muffin top, front. Okay. The arms?
Well, upper arm, but they would have to, so upper arm would be a good
yeah,
indicator. It's usually this part right here.
Yeah, the tricep.
What about the belly?
Yeah.
Okay, belly, and basically what I'm trying to point towards. So Demetrius, thank you for this. I'm pointing towards above the knee should shown. Once you go under the knee, it is calf, and calf, when it's like super fat, you can't really see that well in a picture. Thighs, however, if you ever see a big lady, their thighs are like this, right? Where our thighs are like this. So those are like indicators. Thighs, double chin, if you can see it properly, belly, and it's the arms, right? The upper arms. You can see that they're just massive, right? And obviously, I'm not talking about 180-pound males, right? They need to be like 300 pounds, like over 140 kgs for the emphasis to be shown. Then we need drastic weight loss. Oh, sorry, we had one more question before we continue.
Yes, we have one question from Damien.
Yeah, sorry, it might be going slightly off topic here, but when you were saying about the ads, obviously the image you get, there's certain things you won't see in the ad when it goes. It's obviously, you know, the ad size. Is there any website or app that you would suggest using that you can test that image to see whether or how it would display on an ad site? You know, potentially linked, say for instance, MGID. Is there a site you could use that would show you what that ad would, or what that image would look like on an ad in MGID?
Good question. What happens with the ad exchanges is they give you a recommended maximum size, right? So it can be this big, but not bigger than this. The widgets are displayed in such a fashion that they have different formats. Obviously, they're trying to present your ad on as many placements as possible, right? Because that's how they make money. So your ad will then appear this big, but also this big, right? So your ad is scalable in that format. They have optimized that format. So as long as your ad is able to basically mobile optimized, which like the images is not that difficult to retract, then that opportunity is there. You never know all the dimensions. They give you an ad maximum size, which is the most optimum, and therefore your picture always has to be HD. If it's not, if it's blurry and they compress it, it becomes even more blurry, right? And you basically can't see anything. The tool we use, obviously Canva, you can put in the custom dimensions, you can see what it would look like. But the actual placement quality, that would be like a manual thing. So if they give out, well, I've done it many times just to see what my ad actually looks like. And oftentimes you're surprised that they might tell you it's this big, but when you see it on a simple source, it's this big. Right, and that's one of the conditions where your ad either has one big element that sparks your curiosity, where the headline does the work, right? The headline gets the click, the image is just a scroll stopper. If you think your image will get the click, well, this doesn't work on like small placements.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah,
so that's basically why there's a lot of theory and how we do things, but all these steps on how we explain it to you guys is all backed by all of these variables. Yeah. And if I would explain them to you right now, very good question nonetheless, if I would explain them to all you right now, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things you shouldn't focus on, because we assume that the maximum size for a creative is that the ad exchange does that to help us.
Yeah. Okay.
By helping themselves, because we spend more money because it's optimized.
Yeah, got you.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Cool. Anything else, Stanley?
Yes, we did have one more question from Jack. I'm going to ask Jack to unmute himself.
Yes, Jack.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. I asked it in the chat, but I see all those awesome like illustration ads. You know, those like for fat loss. Like you see some kind of a fat person, and then in the same time they're showing in before and after. You know, like illustration ads in general.
Yeah.
How do I
know
do
what you mean.
How do I create those?
How do you create those? Obviously, you would need a designer. If you don't, well, so I have an in-house designer who makes anything we want, but in your scenario, you wouldn't have that. Websites like Fiverr can make good illustration ads. You get what you pay for. If you pay $4 per design, you're going to get a template. Other affiliates also buy. If you pay $25 per design, they might draw it from scratch. Usually what the high ticket designers do is they use a software which is called, I don't know exactly what it's called, something like compress to icon, where they get a real person image and the software basically sketches it in a template, and that's what they do, and then they just Photoshop the additional elements. But websites like Fiverr, Upwork, those would be suitable for you to get traction. But Jack, very good question on the illustration side. These illustration kind of images have been around for a long time. When I say a long time, I mean a very long time. These are the things you standard see in the spy tool. So you know it's consistently being used by other affiliates, which is great to start and great to include in your test. But you already know if everybody is using it, and we know that 95% of the affiliates don't make proper money, then we don't want to go that route, because we do want to make proper money for a business. We want to achieve our targets, right? In that scenario, you as a media buyer should identify the pattern that has been established through the spy tool, which is basically what spy tool is for, is very clear. Everybody's using this, everybody's using the boiled fruit, the standard clickbank angles, right? So as a recommendation, sure, get 1 or 2 of those custom images, then add them into the rotation, but definitely go a different route, because you know what they're doing is working to some point, but not more than that. And we can do more. Yes?
Awesome, thank you.
Perfect, you're welcome. Anything else before we continue?
I think those are all the questions for now.
Right, perfect, because we have to continue. We're halfway already, and there's so much left to discuss. But I assume everybody's enjoying it so far. All right, so let's cut it down a little bit. We have had all these different elements. Obviously, the elements that are important are obviously the light, the contrast, the curiosity is the number 1. If there's no curiosity, there has to be a fixed problem solution, which before and after, there's not much curiosity on what you're looking at, but every brain understands how it's done, right? We see fat, not fat. How is it done? And that is the automatic match to problem solution, and that's why it works really well. All right, headlines, right? So images, you have the 5 steps to creating right images. At the end of the day, it all comes down to testing, right? You need these 5 steps, and you might think they sound simple. You don't want to see how many ads I see on a daily basis, which is over 1,000, and they don't follow these 5 simple principles, right? Because it takes time to find good ads and then test them. Before we move to the headlines, the ads should fit the sub angle. So every time you have, let's say, 5 different sub angles, you would add a specific amount to images, again, to even out per sub angle under rotation. Regarding the headlines, so any question? Well, I know Stanley just left, very inconvenient, but I can also open the chat. Anybody who has a question, please drop it in the chat regarding the creatives before we move on, because I have a lot more to say about creatives, but we just don't have the time right now. I have opened the chat. If there's any questions left on the creatives where you think like this is what I would like to know, because there's so many other things, please let me know. Then I'll pick it up right now. Otherwise, we move on to the headlines, which is basically the copywriting. Obviously, also a very difficult element where there are not many preset rules. All right, nobody wrote a, okay, there we go, 2 of them. Do you ever use the ads and the headlines as way of testing angles before? I don't know what that means. What is the actual question? Do you ever use the ads and headlines as way of testing angles before creating the copy of the landers? Or you would have to include the copy, but I know what your question is and I will address it. How often will you rotate the creatives? Okay, that's a good question. As soon as we have finished the headline, I will talk about the rotation and the actual implementation of the testing. Okay, that's all clear. Let's continue. Right, so the question is, we cannot do one element, right? We cannot test images. However, it is easier to think of the sub angle, find the images, and then write the headline, unless you're a very good copywriter. So in my opinion, it's angle, sub angle, images, headline. That would be the easiest flow. However, predetermine how many you would need. So if I would do 5 sub angles on the image, I get obviously 5 images per sub angle. The copy needs to match all of them. So it's global, important. Right, the headlines are very basic. Yes, you all know the brackets, breaking news. One thing that is important, here are the rules, capitalization. Every start of a word, the first letter should be in caps, right? The spamminess of exclamation marks is not beneficial. 1 exclamation mark if you want to put emphasis. We're not going to use 3 because your ads will most likely not be shown on the premium placements. Very important with the copy, your standardized copy, just as your standardized images, will result in low ICTR. Things like, learn how this woman lost over 70 pounds overnight, right? We have seen it a million times. So you can imagine that the audience, even one user, has seen it more than 10 times already. Doesn't mean it doesn't work, but it doesn't get the actual results that you're looking for. These copies burn out in 1 week and your campaign is done. How many of you guys have had a successful campaign on native and it burned out, or it was profitable one day, $1,000, $10,000, and then 2 days later, no conversions at all? Any hands? Well, I cannot see everybody. So Stanley, are there any hands?
We do have some hands up.
Okay.
Rob has his hands up, and also Demetrius in the chat said he experienced that as well.
All right. So that's obviously what would happen if you use the standard flow. And that is what I've told all of you before, right? So most of you I've had a personal chat with already. There are methods and there are skills, two very different things. What we train you guys and help you guys with is skill. What you learn from a course is a method, right? So one thing like this call will slowly craft skill over time. It's 1% better, or even 0.1% better every single day will get you the results that your company desires and the targets, right? All right, headlines, very simple. Capitalization, something like this. Is very important, right? It's the basics. Then what we need, anybody who comes from an Amazon FBA e-commerce background, or the agency also handles clients, understand this. Victor, I cannot see your image, but this one is for you. Yes, for your other products. Native, push, display have the opportunity to become extremely aggressive, right? And I said Victor, but I meant Vitor. Extremely aggressive. Oh, sorry, is there something? Stanley, you're raising your hand. You're trying to wave at me. Well, I mean, deep explanation. All right, thank you. The aggressiveness of the copy is extremely important. You can imagine if you are on a website as a user, right? The point of view is you have all these headlines. Kim Kardashian broke up with Kanye West. Everything to grab your attention. The people who work at these newspaper news sources are obviously great copywriters. That's why they're there. They get the clickbait headlines, and you need to compete with them. Apparently so, it's very much possible. There is compliance. If you go too far with the copy, you're being pulled back, right? And nothing happens. If it happens 1,000 times in 1 week, obviously something is going to happen. But do not be afraid to call out the user, to write extra aggressive copy, because this is not Facebook, this is not Google. Here we do whatever the fuck we want. If they don't want it, they will disapprove it. They will always tell you why it's disapproved in an explainer. And then we try to do it as aggressive, but according to the rules, right? Very important. So the aggressive copy is a must. One thing I do not see enough is, I don't know actually what it's called anymore, but let's call it parameters. Additional sub-parameters that are available in the tracker, you can also use in the copy for most exchanges. Extremely powerful, underutilized. If you would say woman loses 70 pounds overnight, it would be so much better if you would say woman from bracket city loses 70 pounds overnight. You target it to the actual audience where they're reading. The city parameter is picked up by the source and automatically filled in from wherever they're watching from. So for me, it would say, woman from Amsterdam loses 70 pounds overnight. Because it's close to me, it hits me so much harder. Well, all the excuses go out of the window. Yeah, she has a different culture. Yes, we're not in that country. Yes, but this. Yes, but that. All the excuses, now it's close to home. Very powerful. Apart from this, there are so many other things. I did previously a consultation for a phone company. You know, everybody has a mobile phone. Jack is on it right now, and he has a subscription, right? What happens with these subscriptions, they did a targeting where they said, your blah, blah, blah carrier, we have better deals. So it says like, people from whatever city Damien is from, who use Vodafone can now get a better deal. right? Super targeted. What happens is they get hit with a local competition law that is not allowed to target users like that. But they made a lot of money before that happened, right? And this is obviously next level using basic strategies. These tools are available to you guys, but you're not using them. Why not? Because they're a little bit more advanced. But now you know that they're usable. So tomorrow I will get all kinds of new copy with all these parameters in them. Very good. All right, next on the headlines, it is very basic. It is consistent copywriting. One thing when we go back to the coherent flow, which I didn't want to touch upon before, but now we will, is obviously the fact that we need to match the entire pattern, right, of the flow. That's why we call it the coherency. Who can explain me how you make sure your ad is not clickbait, but follows a coherent flow? Very curious, because if you can explain this well, you basically would have the ability to be inside the user's mind and to, for most of the audience, make the decision for them to continue through the flow from the ad to the lander. But if you don't know how to do it, there's obviously big breaking point, and what do you get? Drop off.
Right, Damien has his hand up.
Okay, 1 second. Is there anybody except Damien? Because Damien is all in, he's going strong, but we are a very big group of very smart people. You're here for a reason, and I would like you to participate. So we have heard from Damien a couple of times, Robert, Jack, Demetrius, Patrick, right? There are a lot more people here. Who wants to give it a shot before we give it to Damien? Don't be shy.
Don't see any hands.
Confident. And even if you shout it full of confidence and you're wrong, still okay. Nobody? Oh, well, then give it to Damien. Let's see what you got.
Oh, actually,
there you go,
Patrick.
Damien.
Patrick has the answer, I think.
All right, then we'll give it to Patrick, and then we'll come to Demetrius, to Damien after that. Is it in the chat?
Yes, I just asked Patrick to unmute himself.
Okay, let me see. No, his mic doesn't work, remember? Coherent flow using the same angle.
Does it work now?
Oh, there we go. All right, perfect. It does work.
I made some changes.
All right, perfect.
Cool, yeah, I just said like a coherent flow is basically use the same angle on the ad and lander. Right. The angle and the sub angle. Yes. So like the same, when you say like weight loss for moms over 50, then try to like the image, the title match the image and the main headlines and the copy on the lander if it's possible.
Yes, oh, that's perfect. So we have 3 elements and now we're 66% there, right? Because everything on the front end is coherent. Did you ever hear? Obviously, yeah, go ahead.
Like if the product page is selling also to like moms over 50, or if it is possible that some companies have multiple landers, right? You can lead people to. So if you're targeting weight loss, if there's people in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, there's possible that there's different like end product pages. But if the VSL is promoting mainly to like it's talking about women over 50, then your ad targeting women between 30 and 40 and have an image there and the lander being geared towards that audience, obviously the flow is then completely cut when they get to the product and it's like, I'm 25, so this obviously isn't like my thing.
So what I understand, because that's a perfect explanation, you look at the offer, what it frames, based on that you frame your lander, and based on that you make sure the ad and the lander are coherent with the foundational information of your angle and the offer. Correct?
Yeah.
And what do you get? You get a complete line. 1, 2, 3, all connected. Perfect answer from Patrick. The reason why this is so important is we have 2 mechanics in marketing. We have a push and a pull strategy, right? As affiliates, we are the dominant pushers in the market. We don't care about the customer service on the product. We don't care about anything. All we care about is the performance inside the flow and that we generate massive amounts of revenue for our own business, and what happens with the customer later, it is not too interesting for us because we're not involved. What gives you the opportunity here is to push from the source aggressively through the flow. But at the end of the day, we call it a pull strategy because it all starts at the offer, right? If there's a VSL offer, you need to watch the VSL. In the first 2 minutes, you get so many golden nuggets on the targeting, the framing, how you can create a coherent flow that needs to be present all over, right? Especially with the ClickBank offers, this is available. When you go trial, when you go straight sale, when you go cash on delivery, it's all inside above the fold of the lender. Once you scroll through the first fold, what you'll have is you will always have a feature list, right? Above the fold in the top left, it will usually say a woman in the bikini, fake smiling, oh, I'm so happy. And then it will say, with 60 antioxidants, with this, perfect for women who just had a baby. It will sum up all the solutions, right? Why it's so great. And that is basically how you frame the pain point. It all sounds very easy until you have to take all these elements into consideration once you're building out your entire flow. I heard from Stanley, which is great, that soon in the content portal, there will be PDF worksheets available, pointing out all these elements. You can print them out and you can just do your homework and not forget any of these things. How great is that? Yeah? Is it amazing? Yeah, everybody's like, oh, awesome. All right, great. All right, so now, Demetrius, here is your moment. Patrick as well, we're going to dive into the actual testing. All right, we have some global background about the images and the headlines. Now, what do? We launched the campaign according to what we wanted to do. X4, X25. Anybody knows, well, I'm not going to invite anybody because we're short on time, so I'll just go through it quickly. So here we get something we call controls and variables. On 100 different ads, we get 4 times headline and 25 times images. Just remove this to keep it clean. We will then generate from this 1 control and probably here 3 controls. Yes, because why? It's a 1-to-4 ratio, right? In that regard. It doesn't have to be specific. You can see big skyrocketing numbers or not. So what this means is that because we want to keep the control base as small as possible, and the control are the winning ads, right? The winning combinations. So what we end up with out of these 100 ads is 4 controls. What this means is that we're going to remove 96 ads. Who can tell me the indicator on what the testing population of the data is tested? So how many certain things of one variable do we need to get before we complete this analysis? One thing to give it away is the distribution structure on native ads. It's 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3. So all of the ads get the same amount of impressions, and that's why we focus on the impressions. For anybody spending under 100K a week, which is most of you guys here, 5,000 impressions. Yes, 5,000 impressions is just high enough to get a relative stable indication, and it's very low compared to the population of the data. So what we can do is we can test ads continuously. While we're doing this, so 5,000 impressions of a CPM of 20 cents is $1 to this creative test, right? Per creative. Right, so there's already 96 plus 4, $100 in spend on a 20-cent CPM to test this entire thing. The CPA rule is continuously running in the backend. It's step 2 of the optimization, right? We're now working on the front end. So 5,000 impressions. Okay, so after 5,000 impressions, we have 4 ads that have the highest ICTR, right? Do not focus on the other metrics like conversions, click-through. It's irrelevant at this stage. It will come later. It is important to as long as there's crazy things like 100% landing page click-through rate or 0%, focus on it. But if it's 15, 16, 17, 18, all around the mean, then it's fine. Okay, 5,000 impressions is the key rule. What do we do then? So we have tested this. There is 5,000 impressions, and we have 4 controls. We add 96 new ads. But like I said, on one specific element. The question is, out of these 4 controls with the highest ICTR based on the 100 creatives, what is the coherent factor? Is it an image? Is it a headline? Or is it nothing? If it's the headline, we're going to test images. If it is all one image but different headlines, we're going to test the headlines first. That is what I do. It's simple. There's no fixed rule, right? For ads, the main coherent indicator will be the next variable test. We're not going to test headline and image again in the same test, right? So what will happen? Let's say we have 4 controls, of which there are one headline. So it's clear that this headline is the winner out of our entire test, out of the 4 headlines that we tested. And we have, let's say, 2 different images. Then we will take those, and the image count will be the first to test. Now you have to add 96 new images, which is a lot of work, right? So you might want to reduce the creative count a little bit, but if you're dedicated, you just commit. Important to understand, however, now you're moving 2 variables at the same time, right? We have the headline, we have the angle, we have the sub-angle. And that's why you need to write shit out in Word, in Excel, on paper, whatever, because you'll get confused about the structure you need to follow. At this stage on the flow, what we'll do is we'll add new images. To keep it simple, you can cut them up in different sub-angles. Let's say 10 images per pattern. So what we'll do, for an example, is take me. Yes, there's always a person in the image. One is in an office, one is in a safari, one is in the beach, one is in the pool. There are different variants of the same style image. This wouldn't mean office and then a different person. No. So if the image has a can of Coke, that can of Coke needs to come back on the table, on this, different angles, but there has to be a specific control inside the image. And this goes in very big detail. So you might not apply all these rules, but every time you would skip something like this in consideration stage, your potential goes down. All right. So now we add 96 new images, we rinse and repeat, right? We rinse and repeat until we have a 0.1 ICTR percentage over a significant test. This significant test depends on your cash flow. For you, it might be 100,000 impressions. For others, it might be 100 million impressions, right? Depending on what your level of media buying is and the ad spend you spent. At this stage, at some point, you have to make a call, right? And you'll say, the images are done. I have found 5 beautiful images that I believe will push through the entire test and optimization stage until ad fatigue strikes, which means your ad is shown too often in the same places which you've optimized and the ICTR goes down, you need to replace them. But there's time, right? It's all for later. Right now, it is time to do the headlines. We use the same procedure on the headlines, which means 96 headlines is a lot of work, right? So you have 2 choices, yes, in your business. Or if you're not the founder, then for your department. Prep all the work beforehand and take the risk that the data will tell that some angles are not usable, so everything you've prepped is not usable in that specific sub-angle or angle. That's one. On the other hand, have an influx of work to be done once you've found the right angle. So the question is about time and money. You have to be realistic. I'm now giving you an approach of 100 creatives. If you don't have the time because you run Google ads, you run YouTube ads, you run display ads, then drill it down, right? I get all these questions about, yeah, Colin, the CPA rule, you mentioned 1.5 times CPA is usually the sweet spot. This is for all the companies, right? Companies with $10 a day up to $1 million a day. Right? Who watch these basic videos. When we get to work, we have to customize stuff to our own business, our own cash flow. So whether you do 20 creatives per day and you do it well, I'd rather have that than you try to max out 100 creatives, you spend 10 hours on the creative, you're tired, you're not following the rules properly anymore, as with everything. Yes? The same thing goes relative to the testing, because you might be able to push out all these creatives because, let's face it, sometimes you have nothing better to do and you're passionate about this. On the other hand, there is not enough cash flow or budget to sustain this heavy amount of testing. Yes, so I would reduce it by percentage based. 100, 90 ads, 80, all the way down to 10. Do not do less than 10 because then there's not enough data, right? Any questions up until this point?
Yeah, on that note, we had a question from Jack.
Yes, Jack.
Yeah, I see that Rob answered me, but if I'm studying with native at the moment with like a low budget, like really low, like let's say $100 a day.
Yes.
Because I'm doing a lot of other stuff, you know, Facebook and Google and stuff, and I don't want to really start with $1,000 a day. So
Right.
does this apply also? The same rules?
Well, yeah, like I just said, you have to accommodate it relative to your cash flow, right? And I understand for you, cash flow is not the problem, but more relative spend to attention. Yes, you cannot spend too much because the attention is not there. And we spoke about it before. So when you have, let's say, a business that, let's take the other end. Yes, you said $100 a day, let's say $1 million a day, which is also quite significant. The structure doesn't change. Yes, you have either time or money or end money. So what happens is the budget is relative because you can move to lower CPM geos and still do 100 creatives a day. It depends which geo do you target, what is the relative payout of the offer, and all the base elements that we discussed in technical preparation pillar 1, right? Which is like the niche focus, the geo focus, all these things. So let's say you want to implement this strategy as is, 100 creatives a day with $100 a day. You know that with the amount of placements available and the impressions you need to get, you probably want to go in a lower range CPM geo like APAC region, Eastern Europe, Mexico, Latin America, where the opportunities are still there. If you want to do Nutra, you can do cash on delivery. It's all over the place right there. And it's a very big opportunity. And that's it, you know. Do not be fixated on the US, Western Europe, because there's money everywhere. We're digital, we're online. There are emerging economies. Is Alino here, Stanley? Alino,
yes, Alino is here.
From Brazil, yes, has one of the biggest opportunities for him. Speaks fluent Portuguese, and the native sources are now attacking Brazil for its traffic, right? There's so much traffic, and there is obviously very big challenges because there's a very limited amount of people who hold the relative GDP in terms of cash, and there's a lot of people who live below relative poverty. However, as I explained, Alina, before, if you advertise on the right sources, for example, Business Insider Brazil, nobody in favela is going to watch Business Insider Brazil except people with money, right? And there, the CPA rule will indicate which widget or which site the source will show you the potential. But countries like Mexico, Brazil, even Russia, Ukraine, you know, it's not tier 1, but it's the difference, what we call tier 3, but should classify as like tier 2.1, right? Not 1, so 2 and a little bit less, so 2.1. Then again, very good question, Jack. Understand that Brazil has probably around the same amount of citizens as half of the Western European countries combined, right? So there's so much traffic right there. Everybody's online because although people do not have, maybe perhaps, I don't know, I'm making assumptions here, jobs and stuff, they still have smartphones, right? Because that has become a basic necessity. There is little competition because it's all about testing. But if you're from there, you basically have a pedestal. You just need to climb and you can proclaim yourself media buying king in the country, right? Because the opportunity is so strong. All clear?
Yeah, one last question if I can.
Sure.
Does this apply, for example, at the moment I'm testing, you know, ClickBank and, you know, the regular offers like tinnitus and
yes,
blood pressure, stuff like that. Is it possible to run those kind of ads from ClickBank in countries who are not, which are not tier 1?
No. The reason being is the ClickBank offers are designed primarily for gullible Americans. Yes. And when I say Americans, I mean citizens of the United States of America, not the continent America. I hate it when people say, I'm from America, and now I'm saying it myself. But everybody knows what I mean. What is important to point out is there is a massive consumption economy in that country, right? The ads are designed, I spoke with a lot of you about it already, where people are more gullible and they believe things, right? In Western Europe, specifically, I know Australia has it as well, New Zealand, there are protective laws that prevent these kind of advertisements being public, right? There are like government agencies who scrape the internet, look for these kind of problems, and they are ads from the government saying like, do not use these credit card submits because it's not a real company, it's a scam, right? If you would tell somebody probably here in our city, do you want to lose 70 pounds overnight? Everybody will say, no, I'm not interested because it's not possible. Scientifically, it's not possible. You're either cutting your belly off with a knife and you're going to die, or what will happen? And that's the recognition with the audience, what we call audience behavior pattern, which we'll touch upon later in the next training, which is a very strong mover in terms of how you approach things. So offers are classified by geo, by the advertiser for a reason. So on ClickBank, you have Spanish offers and French offers, Italy in very limited quantities, because basically the primary mover for ClickBank is US. If you want to focus on, for example, Nutra cash on delivery, at combo, ClickDealer would be the networks that can supply you Yep ads with those type of offers. And if you need a referral, post it in the community and we'll get you the hookup. Okay?
Awesome, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. We have 12 minutes left. So I know I wanted to discuss so many more things, but we went quite into detail. So based on the testing, is everything clear, or who has questions on this test rotation? Because then I will pick up those first and then we can do random questions thereafter.
Right. So no questions yet. We did have questions on the previous topic.
Sure.
If we do have time for one last question. That is a question from Damien regarding the verticals in Brazil. By the way, Brazil, a little clarification, has 210 million people living in it, so huge potential. I'm going to ask Damien to unmute himself so that he can ask his question.
Yeah, sorry, it was just with obviously Brazil. I know you were saying about it's quite a, certain people are a poorer nation, they don't have the expendable income, etc.
Right.
So what about things like email submits, you know, sweepstakes, things that potentially they're going to look to, you know, there's going to be a little outlay for them, but there's potential for them to, you know, get something that they can afford. So would that be?
Yeah, very good thought pattern. Logical question. Media buying life lesson. Yes. If an offer is specific to a geo, the payout is relative to the CPM, right? So what do you expect? CPM being extremely low in Brazil, payout for a Brazilian sweepstakes, 4 euro cents.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So the advertiser will estimate the margin that it's willing to give you for your skill of deriving traffic. 15 to 30%. We are not the average affiliates, 50 to 60% ROI, right? But in Brazil, therefore, it becomes a quantity game. But it's great because they have 210 million people. It is in tier 3, tier 2, like we usually say, very easy to test because you get a tremendous amount of data for very little money. And you can learn very quickly because you have so much data, right? We look today at your campaign and the specific data points. There are, and I looked at it with Christopher as well on his campaign if he's here, there are just not enough conversions to make the relative conclusion. So you need to go one data point back, which is ICTR and landing page click-through rate, right?
Yeah.
So like that.
Right.
But very good question because it makes sense to ask it. Yes.
Cool.
So Rob says the offers at ClickBank have rules too. What is very important to understand with ClickBank is they have many affiliates. All the beginners start there. They don't really care about you unless you are ClickBank Platinum, right? Which we have, although they might not say it, a lot of ClickBank Platinum people on this call right now. So if you want to be anywhere in the industry, look at the names of all these people and remember them, write them down somewhere. What is important is on ClickBank, it might not say geo-specific, But for example, a lot of these supplement companies, they do not deliver outside the States. So if you get opt-ins, they will automatically refund. They will just scrape them, whatever is necessary there. And if you do not push, let's say, 1,000 conversions a day, they're not going to bother reaching out to you, right? So it's like, okay, you sent me a couple of things, it's not possible. And sooner or later, after a couple of days, you stop your campaign, you might get an email from ClickBank, yeah, you're sending the wrong traffic, but it's a generic message. And if you reply, you never hear back from them, right? It's because they have so many affiliates, right? They don't care about you or your business that much, because if you go away, not a problem, they have many replacements. Therefore, if you go with smaller networks, they might give you proper attention, but you always have to prove yourself, right? All right, next question. And if somebody has a question, just raise your hand and Stanley can unmute you. You don't have to drop it in the chat, it's a little quicker. Because we have 10 minutes left, my friends. What was the affiliate network for Brazil? Depends on what you want to promote, really. So that's a good question. I think most big networks like Advidi, Gotcha, ClickDealer, like all the real sub networks, they have Brazil. If you look for like sweepstakes, Big Bang Ads is probably your way to go, but I don't know if the Brazil office is still open because they have an office in Brazil. Oh, and Alino has the local hookup for info products and physical products, which are probably like more local Brazilian sources. So that would be your best pick. He said Hotmart, Eduz, monetize with double Z. Yeah, info products obviously very lucrative. People want to learn, and there might not be opportunities available in that specific region where they are. All right, perfect.
Patrick with his hand up as well. Patrick, do you have a question? All right, go ahead.
Cool, thanks. So what I wanted to ask was, when selecting the offer, for example, we're talking about 5,000 impressions necessary for a creative to like get proper or enough data, at least that much to get enough data. But then I know we also in the past and like in the training, you talk quite a bit about the 3x rule, or like the at least break even CPA, for example, right? Mm-hmm. If you pick an offer that has a payout of 100 euros or 200 or 300 euros, would you say in the beginning, like depending on how much budget you have to spend, would you recommend like for someone who's starting with 5 to 10K, the offer to be more like email submits that pay out like 2-3 euros, or would you still go for something that pays out 500 euros? Because then in order to, I guess, test, you have to initially in the testing phase, would you need to spend a lot more to see if that payback like is normal? So
if there's traction there. Yeah, so very good question. The payout of the offer is obviously relative to the cash flow. So that's number one, exactly like you said. Promoting a $500 payout with $5,000 on hand for this campaign will result in a disaster, because you will just barely make it into the proper testing phase because your limits are cut, right?
So what would be a payout that you would start with 5K?
5K. All right, let me just hop on one thing quick before what you mentioned also. Follow the patterns, success leave clues, yes, a general saying. Do not promote email submits on native because you never see them because they don't work, right? Email submits require a social engagement, which is not present on native. People find information. The only email submit that's possible is insurance, right? Or loans, one of these two. The general flows are Nutra, Forex, crypto, cash on delivery, Nutra, like all the different models. And if you want to do email submits, but with the credit card trials would only be your only sweepstake. When we look at the relative proportion, it's a percentage game, which is based on widgets. You need a good hookup or trust relationship, which obviously is why you're here. You asked me to get you the hookup to a source, and if I have it available, I bring you the hookup, where you instantly get a whitelist or a blacklist, right? Based on the amount of wishes, you can do the calculation on how to get the overall spend. As an indication, however, you just have to eyeball it. $5,000 or let's say euros in spend. For 50 euros payout, you will have 100 conversions. Yes. which I would say 100 conversions of opportunity is the limit. So you probably want to be under the 50 bucks, but there's a quick but. It depends. I know you have a lot of programmatic experience, right? So you might be more up until the roof of the 50 bucks. So let's say 40, 45, 50. If you have no relative experience, or you're a new media buyer coming from a different source, take it easy. That's $5,000 for your specific first campaign. It doesn't have to spend overnight. So pick, let's say, an $18, $20 product, learn the basic mechanics first, because what you're learning, what you're spending is based on learning. And whether it's a $50 product or a $25 product, you will learn a lot more by a lower payout because you can accumulate more data. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Would you say that from a revenue perspective, like a ROAS perspective, the same, like say 10 to 30%, like 110 to 130% ROAS, will happen the same way on a 25 to 50 euro payout as opposed to a 300 euro payout? Like, is that relationship pretty similar?
That's a very good question, very good thought pattern, but very advanced question, right? So when you look at these kind of scalability questions, the golden rule of media buying, when you scale, ROI goes down, right? Because EPC is still the same, you need more bid, higher price. However, the average media buying goal that all our companies follow, and when I say our companies, it's all of you guys plus everybody not here watching this right now, is 30%. 30% ROI, so 130% ROAS, right? 30% on scale. With lower payouts, you will see quicker traction, of course. However, it's not sustainable on scale because you need to up the bid later. So 30% is what you need to aim for. I closed off last year with about 280 grand profit on the whole crypto game, 48%. Yes, the clients above, well, I cannot name their names, obviously, if they're here on this call, but when they spend more than $1 million, it's always between 28, 32% on scale. It's just the ballpark range where because you have to make the calculation like this: 30% profit, yes, 5%, 10% staff. All right, staff, housing, electricity, rent for the building, when we're talking about bigger scale. Then you have labor, right, which is another 10%. So now you have 10% margin left. Over the 10%, obviously, there's a tax allocation. So what you're at the end left with is usually 4 to 5% net profit, like net, which when we talk about, because the ad spend accumulates so fast, when we're talking about millions a month, it's a very good payout and a very good method, right? As soon as you establish that model, what you will learn is with native, you can switch verticals, you can switch sources, you can switch countries very quickly, because you control all the media buying. Where Google and Facebook control all their own stuff, you are in complete control with the native, as with the push, as mostly with the display, right? But because you're on display dealing with more traffic and a lot more bot activity as well, there are other headaches there. So let's say push and native there, the control you have is at the end of the day your power. 30% is the goal. And once you get over 30%, congratulate yourself.
Cool.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Very long explanation for a very small answer, 30%. Anybody else before we call it a day?
Yeah, Alina asked for a little bit more clarification on the creative controls. I don't know if you want to pick it up here or separately, privately.
What is the context? Because I said a lot of things.
He didn't quite get the meaning
controls.
of creative controls.
The best performing ad in a split test we call the control, and all the other ones we either call variants or new variables, right? So the control is your main performer with the highest data, the best performer, we call the control. Anything you test against it, you test against the control, which we call a variant of the control usually. So let's say this has a headline and an image, you take the headline for the variant with a different image, right? So it's a variation of the control, and the control is the base, and we know that works well. And then we continue it, so the controls might change, or it might stay stable and you can never outcompete it. Yes. Anybody else?
Clear. I don't see any hands. I don't see anything in the chat.
Perfect. Do we have access to the recording? Sure. It will be in the content portal as soon as Stanley takes care of it. It's like a little snip in the beginning and snip at the end. Software to create creatives. Zane, I'm afraid that is all skill. If there would be a software, just like copywriting software, it is a digital marketer's nightmare, because we know that software, machine learning and AI, we say a lot of AI, but it's all machine learning, right? Especially in the performance marketing software. Machine learning goes a long way, but it cannot replace human creativity at an affordable rate as of yet. If there would be a software, it would cost 80 million a month and nobody would use it, right? Perfect. However, we're doing all of this to basically get the components that we understand how to do things, so we can train that skill ourselves and create awesome creatives. All right, perfect. I think everybody's ready for today. In case you're watching this right now, or you will have any questions later, there's a content portal section in the community available where you can drop all your questions. Next week, we either continue, because I didn't finish my flow on this, but we will send out an invite tomorrow so you can accept it, join us live, either native continuation or push, wherever I have the energy for, right? Next week, there will be a private webinar with a crypto advertiser, and only you guys will get a private invite to join, and they will bring their affiliates. This is a crypto advertiser. The average affiliates pull in around 200 grand per week. So definitely come there to learn everything about the crypto and native space. If you're interested, you will get an invite between Monday and Wednesday tomorrow. It is on Thursday, right? Yeah, perhaps once we have the worksheets prepared, I'm just reading the comments, we will give you tasks. But at this point, because there's a variety of people, we have Facebook people here, push people, native people, I want you guys to focus, and the worksheets will be uploaded in the content portal. Thank you guys for being here. It was my pleasure. And we'll pick it up next week when we do this all again. An hour and a half of private attention. All right, perfect. Then I will stop the screen share. I can see everybody right now. And I hope you guys had a great time. I sure did. I see some thumbs up. And then I'm going to call it a day because I'm very thirsty. There was a lot of talking, and good luck with your campaigns. I'm very sure that right now you have had a kickstart. Rommel, yes, I see you. Oh, you turned off your camera. I just saw you for a second. I will send you a private message in your coaching chat just after this. So we can have a short chat. Everybody else, good luck. Create campaigns, focus on the profit, and then we'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.